Okay, guys, I'm back. The second Genevieve's answer, however, was a conundrum, an exact number, but one that was highly implausible despite Ophelia only being able to remember a handful of names her sister had mentioned brief affairs with over the years. Not after Genevieve had admitted to keeping things from Ophelia as to not rub her social life in her sister's face. If Ophelia could count almost 11 in just her own memory, however, then that meant Ophelia reached up to grasp onto her locket with one hand and approached the first Genevieve. Nothing. As she expected, she turned to the second one. Again, nothing. She took a deep breath and then a leap of faith. Neither one of them are Genevieve, she declared. At first, nothing happened, and she and Blackwell held their breaths. The two Genevieves glanced worriedly at each other as they waited for their own fates. Then both of them dissolved into clouds of smoke. You did it, Blackwell declared, pride in his voice. A portal appeared in the middle of the room. Then she strutted toward it with purpose. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a bone to pick with the Prince of the Devils. Chapter 49, Hearts. One thing Blackwell had always been right about was that soft hearts did no one any good. They broke over and over again. They bled for those who didn't deserve it. So when she finally got an audience with Phantasma's creator, her heart would not be soft. It would be hardened from all the heartbreak she had experienced in the last 2 weeks, and the heartbreak that had not yet come as her time with Blackwell dwindled to an end. Unless she did something about it. And if the Prince of the Devils refused to give her what she wanted, then she would show him her teeth. Hold on, guys. I'm going to have to take that out. Level 9. Chapter 50, Treachery. Ophelia stepped from the portal and emerged back into the foyer. She tore through the space with purpose, making her way to find a place with blank wall as she waited for Blackwell to reappear. Where are you going? Sinclair demanded from his post next to the portal. She paused, turning to bare her teeth at the devil. To finish this. What do you mean, finish this? He said, seething. I suppose you'll have to wait and see, won't you? She grinned. A moment later, Blackwell blinked in at her side. You're going to summon the door again. A statement. A statement. Yes, she confirmed. I am. Sinclair balked in disbelief. That isn't possible. Only Salmastress can make it appear when there's one last contestant standing. Blackwell's smile was knowing. She's done it before. Sinclair sputtered, no. Ophelia closed her eyes and recalled the scene of the door. It was right before she had met Blackwell. Well, officially met Blackwell. It was at the end of the hallway in her group's wing. But she had a pretty good hunch that the location didn't matter, only access to a blank canvas. She pictured how the doorway stretched up out of thin air, the enormous wrought iron frame fitted with scarlet mosaics, the gilded handle. Her locket began to heat around her neck, and when she opened her eyes, there it was. Sinclair gaped in awe at her for a moment before his expression gave way to fury. You do not understand what you're walking into, girl, he spat. Listen to me. She laughed, cutting him off. I suppose it's a good thing that's my problem and not yours, right? She strode to the door, Blackwell at her back, watching Sinclair to make sure the devil didn't decide to charge at her. She grasped the handle and tugged, but the door didn't budge. She glanced back at Blackwell and questioned. You have to say the creator's name for it to unlock. It's why I couldn't help you open it before. I couldn't say his name unless you already knew it, he told her. Usually the final contestant receives it on the 10th day, but it should still work. I'm warning you, girl, Sinclair said. You'll be sorry if you do this. She paid the devil no mind. Taking a deep breath, she turned to Blackwell and whispered, Do you truly believe we can always find our way back to each other? You've said before nothing would ever stop you from getting to me if I needed you. That you would tear the universe apart at its seams to keep that vow. Do you still mean that? He reached up to grasp her face in his hands. With every ounce of my soul. When you go through that door, it will not be the last time I see you. You promise? She whispered. I swear, Angel, he vowed. She nodded and called out, Salmastress. Hold on. The heavy metallic click of a lock came from the doorknob in front of her, and this time when she pulled at the handle, the door swung open. There was nothing but darkness and the essence of power beyond the frame. Blackwell let her go, a pained expression on his face as he watched her step forward. A deep gust of wind sucked her inside, and the door slammed shut behind her, severing her from Blackwell in the manor. The gust of wind pulled and pulled at her body until she found herself approaching a single spot of light. When her feet hit the floor, she spun around in a circle, squinting to try and make out something in the shadowy abyss. "Hello," she called. "Salmastress, I'm here for my prize." There was no answer, only silence. Minutes went by, possibly hours, as she waited in the dark, and she was growing impatient. She wanted to do this alone, for herself. But she wondered what would happen if she summoned Blackwell, if there was a detail she was missing since he hadn't received the clue for this trial. "Just call him," she told herself. "It doesn't make you weak to ask for help. You're still going to be the victor." She called for Blackwell and waited. There was no response. Maybe he can't be summoned in this level, she thought to herself. But suddenly the energy shifted around her, power like she'd never felt before, filling the space around her. Somewhere beyond the small glowing circle she was standing in, footsteps approached. "Hello, Angel," a deep velvet voice greeted her. Blackwell stepped into the ring of light. "Good, you heard me," she said with relief. "Do you know what I should do next?" He was unnervingly silent. She narrowed her eyes. Something was different. "Blackwell," she whispered. "Firstly, let me reintroduce myself." He dipped his head in a formal bow. "My name is Salmastress Erasmus Blackwell, Prince of the Devils, but you, Angel, may call me Salem." What? 5 centuries before Phantasma. Chapter 51, Tethered. A prince of the devils, Salmastress thought he'd long ago experienced the darkness things hell had to offer. He'd witnessed the gruesome purgatory pits countless times, had watched souls within them tear each other limb from limb for centuries on end in the hope of climbing out to a better afterlife. He'd been the harbinger of pain and death himself for many souls, mortal and immortal alike, over the last 5 centuries. But the moment he realized she had been taken, that was an agony unlike he'd ever known. It had been nearly a year since he'd vowed to her to never return to the heart of hell, since he'd seen the rolling, infernal, iris-covered hills of Nocturnia. Now he stood before the expansive gates of his father's palace, shoulders heavy with the weight of his broken vows. But there was nothing that would keep him from getting to her, not even the promises between them. The gates, made of onyx flames that licked all the way up into the tempestuous sky, parted for him almost instantly, recognizing him, blazing brighter as if to celebrate his return. He stalked through the glittering obsidian halls like a hellhound following the scent of blood, but beneath the vicious fury shrouding him like a cloud of smoke, there was terror sinking into his bones. He could feel her here, within these insidious walls where she did not belong. Her heart was too soft for this place. "I'm coming," he swore. "I'm coming for you." A line of guards were posted outside of his father's throne room, waiting for him. It was nothing more than a show, of course. Not even an army would be able to stop his power. It was merely a point to be proven, that he was still the cruel, vicious prince of the devils his father raised him to be, that he could never be tamed. A vicious snarl ripped from his throat as he unleashed a wave of dark magic over the unit of guards, splattering gore across the pristine diamond floors. He thought that perhaps that was true. He could not be tamed, would not be, except by her. He would be every bit of good she so desperately wanted to see in him, as long as she was safe. But now he'd tear the world to shreds. The double doors were still dripping with blood as he used his magic to blast them open. Beyond them, the enormous black throne room was sweltering with heat from an amethyst and ink-colored flames that covered its walls. The king of the devils was sitting atop his diamond throne, a crown of ebony flames resting atop his head. He smiled down from the dais at Salem. Purring atop the king's lap was his favorite little spy. The cat yawned lazily at the building tension rolling through the room as Salem approached his father. At the bottom left of the dais steps, Salem spotted Sinclair, held captive between 2 demon guards. It took everything for him not to charge the fucking bastard and rip him limb from limb. This was all Sinclair's fault, and he loathed the fact that he'd ever considered the other devil as a friend. By the murderous look in Sinclair's scarlet eyes, that sentiment was returned. Salem bared his teeth at the king as he approached the steps to the throne. Where the fuck is she? His father laughed. Is that how you greet your father after all this time? Salem seethed. Don't fucking play with me. If you don't let her go, I will burn all of Nocturnia to the ground, and the rest hell with it. The smile never left his father's face. Unfortunately, I do believe you would try such a thing. But there's one little detail you're missing, my prince. Salem narrowed his eyes as his father stood and transported down the stairs from his throne. The king stopped right in front of him, leaning in to whisper the most bone-chilling words he'd ever heard on his father's lips. I know your true name. Salem felt his blood run cold. No, it couldn't be. He'd only ever given his true name to one person. Ah, and therein lies the problem, the king said as he pulled back with a smile still on his lips, but only malice in his eyes. You can play at being powerful all you want, Summastress, but at the end of the day, you gave all your power away the moment you fell in love with a silly fucking mortal. His father said the word mortal like it was a curse. But don't be too upset with her, his father continued. After all, mortals are such fragile little things. Haven't I always warned you of that? It was only a matter of time until she succumbed to the torture, though I will say I was mildly impressed she managed to last nearly 3 days before screaming your true name for all to hear, hoping you would come to rescue her. Pain ripped through Salem at the idea of her being tortured, calling his name so desperately only for him never to come. His vision went completely red as he lunged for his father, wrapping his hands around the man's throat. Why are you doing this? He snarled. She's done nothing to deserve it. She made you a fucking liability, his father hissed back as he ripped himself out of Salem's hold. She made you a weakness to this entire kingdom. I warned you that you'd regret choosing her over your duty to Nocturnia. Then punish me, Salem demanded. I'm the one who disobeyed you, not her. Punish me. The second the insidious smile began spreading over his father's face, he regretted his words. Don't worry, that's exactly what I plan to do, the king snapped his fingers. Bring her out. The breath rushed from Salem's lungs as he watched 2 new guards appear from thin air a few feet away, a body hanging limp between them. He dismembered his enemies, ripped out their hearts, and bled them dry for centuries without blinking. But this, he nearly vomited when he saw the state of her. He pushed away the demons that were holding her up, dropping to his knees on the floor as he cradled her body to his. He didn't care that his father would see the display as yet another weakness. He needed to touch her, to heal her. She was covered in so many bruises and lacerations that there was not a single square inch of unblemished skin on her body. Her dark brown hair was matted with blood. Her crystal blue eyes were dull with pain. There was a nasty slice in her bottom lip, and she was fucking hell. She was missing her incisors. Angel, he whispered, his fingertips brushing over her face in soothing strokes as he worked to keep the terror out of his voice. He didn't need to make her panic. I'm here, Angel. You're going to be all right. I'm going to fix it. She swallowed, her watery eyes squinting up at him. Salem, you're really here. A sob erupted from her throat. You came for me. I told them you would. The adoration that she still had shining for him in her gaze made him loathe himself. He didn't deserve it. He'd failed her. He buried his face in her neck, petting a hand over the back of her head. I told you I'll always come. I'm sorry it wasn't sooner. I'm so fucking sorry. She clung to him as hard as her remaining strength would allow, as if she still didn't quite believe he was real. Devastating. Too soon she was ripped from his arms. Magic slammed into his body, sending him flying back from her. He rolled back to his feet in an instant, but his father had already reached her. His back was flush to the king's chest, his arm wrapped around the front of her torso while his hand gripped her by the throat. Stop, Salem croaked. What do you want from me? Do you want me to beg? I'll fucking beg. It's much too late for that, his father said. I'll return to Nocturnia, Salem vowed, staggering a step toward them. For the rest of my eternal life, if that's what you desire. Just don't harm her. Let her go back to her life. Don't move, Blackwell, his father's voice thundered through the room. Salem froze in place, and magic had flooded through his entire being at the invocation of his true name. The king smiled as he brought his lips next to Angel's ear. Any last words, girl, for your for your beloved? A weight of hopelessness settled on Salem's shoulders as he was forced to watch. Angel struggled to raise her head enough to meet his gaze, and the look of resignation in her blue eyes made him want to roar. He fought against the magic holding him, bucked and pushed until every muscle in his body was trembling with the effort. All to no avail. I love you, Salem, she whispered. When his father's command wouldn't allow him to respond, the king laughed and ordered, Speak, Blackwell. I love you, Salem choked out. I'm sorry you ever met me. I'll never forgive myself. Please, she swallowed with effort. Please don't forget me. Never. You promise, she pleaded. I swear, Angel, he avowed. Then the king of the devils reached into her chest and tore out her heart. Salem roared, and the fire bordering the room burned brighter, slithering up the walls and stretching all the way to the ceiling above. His cry was so loud that even the beings in heaven must have heard it. The king snapped his fingers, the ones not wrapped around Angel's bleeding heart, and a demon servant appeared. The king dropped the girl's corpse and heart to the servant's feet, and Salem cursed him for the grotesque display of apathy. Dispose of her, as we discussed. The demon gave a single nod before removing her limp, blood-covered body and disappearing. Approach me, Blackwell, the king ordered now. I will fucking end you, Salem swore at his feet, involuntarily carried him toward the man. I will not rest until I melt every inch of flesh from your bones and dig the forsaken heart from your own chest. I will feed it to your hellhounds, and then I will give them your soul to play with until it is ripped to shreds. A cruel twinkle glinted in his father's eyes. And how will you do that, son, when I banish you from here and tether you somewhere else? Salem snapped. What the fuck are you talking about? Did you think taking her away was your only punishment? That part was much too easy to be any fun, his father carped. You wanted to betray me so you could play house with your precious little mortal. You wanted to let her wield your true name? I've created a place where you will be able to experience both for however long I deem satisfactory. Salem suddenly felt very tired. His father knew his true name. Every threat he wanted to aim at the man was empty. And now that Angel had been taken, he didn't have anything left to fight for anyway. Don't lose all hope so quickly, his father admonished. I've left you a loophole. Salem was too exhausted to ask what the loophole might be. No, not exhausted. Numb. Cold. The king reached out and gripped his son's face with malice. Salmastrius Erasmus Blackwell, I'm hereby sentencing you to my newest creation, Phantasma, a place of nightmares that you will rule with no memory of the treacherous little bastard you become to me, and maybe you'll eventually learn how to deserve your title of Prince of the Devils. You'll belong to Phantasma and myself evermore, unless you find the heart and a key to set you free, the king invoked. Alexa, stop. And if I do set myself free, Alexa, stop. You will receive a fair reward. What's your price? The king smiled. I want every single soul who knows my true name to forget it, Salem said. The king laughed. That won't bring her back, but you have a deal. If you manage to release yourself from Phantasma, I vow to forget your true name. As the magic of his father's unbreakable vows settled over them, the king snapped his fingers, and Salem watched as the other demon guards he'd forgotten were still in the room shoved Sinclair forward. Sinclair, please escort my son to your new home. Make sure you go over every little detail we discussed before the game begins. Sinclair dipped his head in a bow at the king's request before turning to Salem and making a sharp, beckoning gesture with his chin. Let's go, Blackwell, Sinclair ordered, utter hatred dripping off of every syllable. Salmastrius followed his former friend out of the throne room without another word, the only thought echoing in his mind her name, as it would until there was nothing left of him but dust. Angel. The king of the devils watched his son disappear from the palace, waiting until he no longer felt the prince's essence within its walls. Poe, he requested to the empty room. The cat appeared seconds later, a mool ringing out of its mouth as it awaited orders. Follow them. Report back to me at the end of each game, he instructed. The cat blinked out of the room once again as the king transported himself back to his throne. Settling back into its velvet cushions as he snapped his fingers, 4 of his servants were immediately lined up in front of him, standing shoulder to shoulder at attention. He tapped a foot on the ground thoughtfully as he tilted his head at one of the servants in particular. Dahlia. Did you take her of the mortals as I requested? Dahlia, a young demon with a gift for soul singing, stepped forward from the line. She reached into the pocket of her tailored trousers and pulled something out. A golden, heart-shaped locket. Yes, Your Highness, Dahlia confirmed as she transferred the locket to the king's hand. All that's left is to choose who will receive the mortal soul and when it shall be released. The soul needs to be reborn to someone who will not balk at a place such as Phantasma, but will have a healthy dose of apprehension in regards to it. We cannot make the game too easy for Salmastress, after all. A paranormal mortal, perhaps? Dahlia suggested, and a spark of excitement went through the king. Precisely, the king confirmed. Not a seer. They would have too much of an advantage. A being who will know the consequences of magic and will give the darling little curse I placed on Phantasma heavy consideration before deciding to choose my son, despite it. Dahlia dipped her head in understanding. And how long should I assure the necklace be worn before the soul is released and reborn? The king considered for a moment. Let's give him 5 centuries. Make sure my magic has time to make him really forget her. Too much sooner and he might still be able to recognize her soul. Make sure whoever you compel to wear the necklace will never take it off until it is passed to the next host, and so on. There is a necromancer currently residing in the dungeon. Your Highness, Hestia Grimm. One of the other servants chimed in. The woman who was attempting to create an undead army. Her hatred for devils and hell may make her a viable candidate. The king smiled as he tossed the locket back to Dahlia. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and the end of Phantasma is next. I stopped on 52. Just a couple more pages, guys. I'm excited. I'll get back to you soon. Bye. Hi guys, welcome back. This should be the last time we see Phantasma. We are going to finish it right now. I was going to finish it yesterday, but Halloween got, busy. So I'm going to finish it now. We left off on the end of Phantasma, chapter 52, Untethered. I don't get it, Ophelia said, hating how her voice began to shake. My name is Salmastress Erasmus Blackwell, Prince of the Devils. I know, Blackwell said, a sad smile on his lips. You've played a good game, though, Angel, and now I can give you what you're owed. He began to circle her slowly. Since you made it to the last level, I'll cut your payment to me for the blood bargain from 10 years to 5, and you can otherwise walk away unscathed. She frowned at him. No, I get to choose what I use my devil's grant for. He shook his head. I'm afraid you entered this level too early to technically be the grand prize winner. The rules are that you have to be the last person in Phantasma alive to win the devil's grant. And there were still other contestants playing the game when you entered here. So your choice is to take the reduced sentence or to be disqualified altogether. She stared at him in disbelief. Of all the times she thought about the end of her journey in Phantasma, this had never been in even her wildest imaginings. Salmastress Erasmus Blackwell, Prince of the Devils. So what will it be? He moved to stand right in front of her. The devil had a wicked mouth and a voice as smooth as bourbon. What is your decision? He pressed as he trailed the tip of his index finger down one side of her throat, his lips mere centimeters from her racing pulse on the other. You tricked me, she whispered. He laughed in response, his breath caressing her feverish skin. He was so close that she could barely think. Any coherent response to his question eluded her as another shot of adrenaline rushed through her veins. But the events leading up to this moment were burned into her mind with vivid clarity. She had done this to herself. She had been so foolish. But you don't have a devil's mark, she whispered, and you are a phantom. He gestured to his silvery white hair. I admit my devil's mark is particularly convenient for blending in as a ghost. Are you kidding me? She growled. Don't feel bad, Angel. You aren't nearly the first person I've fooled. I've been at this for a very long time. Why? She demanded. Sinclair told you a story of my past, did he not? Yes. And what did he say? She swallowed. He said that you fell in love and chose your lover over the king of the devils, your father. As punishment, your lover was killed, and now you must run Phantasma for the rest of your existence. All true, he confirmed, except my father did give me one mercy, a loophole. All I've needed was a heart and a hidden key, and I would be untethered from this place. Tethered from this place. The only problem is that every time a new game begins, the memories of my true self are wiped away completely. The only time I am returned to my full self is when a contestant reaches this level until the start of each new game, my one reprieve. And even the memories I have as this version of myself have become murky with every passing century. She gasped. You mean the first time I met you? You met the real me, this version of me. He nodded, then smiled. What's left of me, at least. You're the first person in centuries I was ever able to talk to outside of the competition and the manor, who I was able to tell about the heart and the key, and it still did me no good. How could it, when my own memories worked against me? I hardly remember anything before I was tethered to this place, except the rage for my father. That has remained. Deep sorrow was laced beneath his words, and despite the shock and betrayal of his true identity, her heart ached for him. What a miserable existence not to remember your own self. So, you choose a contestant each competition to help you find this mysterious key, she said. What about the contestants you don't choose? Are they actually playing to win? He shrugged. Sure they are, and if they do, they get their prize. But more often than not, my chosen one makes it to the end, as you can clearly see. And those who love their lives here simply fuel the manor's power. I don't understand why Sin talked about you as if you were two different people, she said, or why you were referred to as the creator if it was your father that made this place. Ah, he laughed. That's because as part of the punishment, he can tell people about me, but never directly who I am within the competition. The two entities must be kept separate, the devil and the phantom. My father gave Sinclair his own loophole when he banished him here with me, as well as Poe, the little spy. Wait, even the cat was in on this? Blackwell snorted before continuing. The title of the creator is used for my alter ego's benefit since I became unaware of my true identity within the game. I suppose I am the creator in a sense, considering Phantasma wouldn't even exist if it weren't a punishment for me. Sinclair's job is to make sure I don't break free. If he succeeds for long enough, he may be pardoned early, and some other fool who pissed off my father would have to take his place. A sort of insurance policy that I stayed as long as possible. My father is a spiteful man. I'm sure, she deadpanned. He tilted his head thoughtfully now. What I find more interesting, however, is how hard Sinclair tried to stop you. He's never worked so hard at it before. She looked down at her hands. I thought I could save you. I thought I was getting close. Me too, Angel. Something about the way he said those words, the way he still called her Angel, unraveled something within her. Was any of it real, she whispered? As real as it could have been with only half my memories, he said, eyes shutting before she could see whatever emotion he was hiding in them. I know I should be furious at you, murderous even, but Don't, he ordered. Don't waste any of your emotions on me. This is where we must part ways, and feeling anything for me at all isn't worth it for you. It would be best if you just forget me altogether. Everyone who falls in love within Phantasma is cursed, because falling in love is what got you into this in the first place, she stated, remembering the realization she'd had the first time she'd heard the story from Sinclair. My father has a sense of humor, don't you think? He shook his head. Yes. He wondered why I chose someone over him. I'm sorry you lost them, she said sincerely, though the words made her ache inside, truly. It was a very long time ago, he told her. I'm ashamed to say I can't even remember them now. Sometimes I get flashes of details, small hauntings from the past, but they're gone so quickly. Now they're just another thing time has taken from me. I'll never forgive my father for that. Blackwell, Salem, she corrected herself. She needed to separate the phantom she knew and this devil she was still unsure of. I want you to know that it was all very real for me. It still is. I was going to ask to use my devil's grant to find and break your teether. He froze in utter shock. Ophelia. The bargain was that I had to find it before I left the grounds. So, it would have counted, right? He swallowed. You would have done that for me? Of course, she said. You don't get it. No, he lunged forward, clapping his hand over her mouth. His green eyes burned with new intensity as he ordered, Don't. She pushed his hand away and declared, "It's true, though." A single tear slid down her face. "And I know it's foolish. I know we've spent this entire time making sure we avoided this very thing. Does it really matter if I say it out loud or not? You've changed me." She took a deep breath, reaching up to hold on to the locket beating wildly around her neck for comfort. "Even the necklace has always seemed to know it. My heart is completely and utterly—" She gaped at him in shock. "What?" he asked. "That's it," she realized. "What's it?" "What you've been searching for is me. This." She yanked at the necklace until the chain snapped away and dangled the heart-shaped piece between them. The heart in her chest began to slow ever so slightly. He looked at her as if he had gone a little bit mad, as she had gone a little bit mad, but there was also a spark of something like hope in his eyes, and that was what she was going to hold on to. "Your father trapped you in a place where it's forbidden to fall in love, or there's a dire consequence. You told me you needed a heart and a key, but what if that's not two separate clues? This necklace, it's enchanted. It beats with my own heart. In my fight with Cade, he ripped it off me, and my heart, it what?" Blackwell prompted. "It nearly stopped." Blackwell sucked in a breath before reaching forward and flattening his palm over her chest to feel her weakening heartbeat. "What about the key portion?" She shook her head. "That? I'm not sure. Maybe the key is inside of it? But no one has ever been able to get the damn thing open. But this has to be right, doesn't it? Sinclair taking such an intense interest in me, making you jealous, trying to drive any wedge he could between the two of us, my mother warning me to stay away from you, telling me to never ever take the necklace off, always warning me away from devils." Blackwell rocked back on his heels in shock, and that was all she needed as confirmation. "Here," she took his hand and set the locket in his palm before curling his fingers over it. "My heart, it's yours. If you give this to me, you will die," he told her. "Do you understand that?" "Yes," she whispered. "I could have died plenty of times in this manner, but I love—" "No, listen to me," he implored as he recovered, moving to grasp her face in his hands, the warm metal of the necklace pressing against her cheek. "Your heart is one thing. Hearts can be fixed, but you will still be cursed. If I'm set free, I will be immune to the curse, my prize for beating my father, but you will still face the consequences for breaking Phantasma's crucial rule, or cardinal rule. Even if Phantasma crumbles to dust." She smiled sadly at him. "It's okay." "Ophelia, don't. I love you," she whispered. "I love you so much. You saved me so many times in so many ways, and it barely took you a week to change me so intrinsically. I may never be rid of my inner demons, but for this single sliver of time, whenever we were together, you made them quiet. I was able to hear myself for once, and I want you to know that I will gladly take on whatever this place is going to curse me with, knowing you will finally get out of the hell you've been trapped in for so long." Tears flowed down her face as he shook his head at her confession, his expression marred by agony. "No," he pleaded. The pain hit her an instant later. Phantasma's cursed magic forcing itself through her system, making her knees buckle to the ground. "Loving him will only ruin you," her mother had warned her, but only now did Ophelia realize what she had really meant. She had meant that loving Blackwell would only affect Ophelia. Blackwell would walk away unscathed. She wondered if her mother had known about this all along, or if Tessie Grimm had only learned of the scope of Phantasma's rules in the afterlife. She doubled over as another shot of pain cut through her thoughts. And then Blackwell began to transform as well. Her locket began to glow in his hand, a bright icy blue, grim blue. The locket lifted into the air, prying itself open and bursting with a light that enveloped the darkness around them completely. Blackwell roared as power and magic began to swirl around them from the necklace, flooding into his body. His full powers were returned to him. He was officially untethered from Phantasma. He was free. "No," he snarled as soon as the light dissipated, and the locket fell to the ground with a pitiful clink. Her heart was now a slow, faint thud in her chest. He will not take you from me, too. Not again. Never again." She cried out in misery as the curse continued ripping through her fingernails turning purple as her blood circulation slowed. "Ophelia," he pleaded, scooping her necklace up from the ground to clutch it safely back in his hand. "I can return a working heart to you as your payment for setting me free, but you have to verbally tell me you agree to that as your payment. The curse, though, That's another ordeal entirely. She gritted her teeth against the pain as she forced herself to look at him, her next words coming out breathless. The heart? Yes, I agree to the heart, as my payment. This might hurt a little, he told her as his hands began to glow blue. He placed them both over her chest, and she felt the warmth of his magic move through her instantly. For a loaded moment, there was a heavy pressure within, an ache on something bloomed beneath her flesh. And then it was over, and she felt it, a heartbeat. She took a deep breath of air, and Blackwell cupped her face in his hands, pressing his forehead down to hers in relief. Thank fucking hell, he whispered. She cleared her throat, her words still weak as she pressed. Phantasma's curse. As soon as she mentioned Phantasma, an aftershock of pain rolled through her body. He leaned back so he could look her directly in the eyes, soothing his hands over her face in comfort. The only way I can break a curse of my father's that is this powerful is by making you a deal. He hesitated, if you sign your soul over to me, I can eradicate the curse from it. I promise to return it to you, unblemished after. A sob broke through her chest, signing over her soul to a devil. No, the prince of the devils was possibly the most inadvisable thing anyone could do. As much as she wanted to trust Blackwell's word to return it, she couldn't risk such a thing. If she perished without her soul, she would have no afterlife. It's another trick, the shadow voice said. All of this is a trick to get your soul. I can't, she cried, holding on to the lapels of his shirt. Please, anything else, anything. I'm begging, all right? Please. His gaze was full of remorse. To break something like this, I need a significant amount of energy to balance out what's being destroyed. I would need a permanent teether. Her breath hitched as the agony slowly began to subside, the curse beginning to settle deep in her marrow. His green eyes held her gaze. Phantasma was my permanent teether before. The souls that came through here supplied me with energy, and I supplied it back to the manor. Even with my full power returned, now that the ties between me and the manor are cut, Phantasma is falling apart, which means that without bargains to sustain me, I'd have to return to the other side. Phantasma is falling apart? He nodded. I can feel it. It's crumbling. The devils will have to go elsewhere for business. The apparitions will be released from the estate. Sinclair will have to return to my father for the remainder of his indebted sentence for failing to keep me tied here. If I agree to be your new teether, she began, her eyes beginning to blur, what would that entail? Forever with me. And? He smirked. Is that not enticing enough for you? Don't toy with me right now to tie yourself to me and worry that we'd lose each other. Now that I'm free, I will carry the memories of this time with you forevermore. The matter of my soul will always have your name etched to it. I may not have been able to remember my true identity within the manor, but I was still me. I know the truth of what I felt for you then, and I know the truth of what I feel for you now. He took a deep breath. And if you do choose to be my teether, I need you to know that does not mean you have to stay with me. You'd be free to live your eternal life however you want, even if that means you decide you never want to see me again. Now or never, Angel, he told her. This was it, what everything since her mother's death had led to. Her choosing what sort of future she was going to have, what sort of legacy. What's your decision? Epilogue. Legacy. As Ophelia strolled through New Orleans, there was a sense of peace in the air around her. She was almost home, only 20 or so minutes out, and when she stopped in front of the restored cathedral, she remembered why that was. Phantasma had crumbled to the ground and vanished without a trace. The cathedral had returned to its rightful place where the Devil's Manor once sat. No sign it had ever existed here at all. New Orleans after dark had become lighter in the past few weeks. Rumors that devils no longer walked the streets had begun to circulate. Something about the atmosphere having changed. People not as desperate to make inadvisable deals after the sun went down. Ophelia had become more comfortable roaming the city by herself, even past dusk. Had settled into the idea that she was powerful enough to look at the dark and could handle whatever might look back. She quickened her pace up the road, hating to linger on things of the past when she had a much more exciting future. When she spotted the rose-covered gates of Grim Manor, anticipation thrummed through her veins. She and Genevieve still had a lot to work out. They had been making an effort to untangle the delicate threads of tension from their childhood, but Ophelia had never been more confident of where she stood with her sister. "She's going to hate you, or hate your surprise," the shadow voice rasped. Ophelia ignored it, something that had become easier with every passing day. She had been working on putting together this surprise for nearly 2 months, and absolutely nothing was going to ruin her mood about it. She hurried up the long driveway, leaping up onto the porch to push their front door open, calling Genevieve's name as she stepped into the foyer. "I have a surprise for you," she announced. She removed her walking jacket and slung it over the entryway table, slipping her gift to Genevieve out of its front pocket as she patted her way through the house to the main den. Grim Manor felt lighter than ever, which was partially down to the fact that it had been dusted top to bottom, and the girls had taken it upon themselves to begin decluttering their mother's things, finally ready to lay Tessie Grimm's memory to rest. They had packed up all the sentimental bits and bobs into the attic space upstairs, of course, but a clean slate meant they could start making this place really their own. And Ophelia could decide which parts of her mother's practice she'd like to continue of her own volition, and not because of any overwhelming guilt. Since Phantasma had fallen, Ophelia had been carefully assessing what she wanted to do with her magic. She found that she'd developed a soft spot for other paranormal beings, one such as herself, Genevieve, and Lucy, who felt as if they had no choice but to thrust themselves into perilous situations when hard times struck. She wondered if there may be an untapped avenue of business to explore there, instead of dealing with corpses and death day in and day out. To be a sort of safe haven to explore options of assistance in the paranormal realm before making an ill-advised had been making an effort to untangle the delicate threads of tension from their childhood. But Ophelia had never been more confident of where she stood with her sister. "She's going to hate you, or hate your surprise," the shadow voice rasped. Ophelia ignored it, something that had become easier with every passing day. She had been working on putting together this surprise for nearly 2 months, and absolutely nothing was going to ruin her mood about it. She hurried up the long driveway, leaping up onto the porch to push their front door open, calling Genevieve's name as she stepped into the foyer. "I have a surprise for you," she announced. She removed her walking jacket and slung it over the entryway table, slipping her gift to Genevieve out of its front pocket as she patted her way through the house to the main den. Grim Manor felt lighter than ever, which was partially down to the fact that it had been dusted top to bottom, and the girls had taken it upon themselves to begin decluttering their mother's things, finally ready to lay Tessie Grimm's memory to rest. They had packed up all the sentimental bits and bobs into the attic space upstairs, of course, but a clean slate meant they could start making this place really their own. And Ophelia could decide which parts of her mother's practice she'd like to continue of her own volition, and not because of any overwhelming guilt. Since Phantasma had fallen, Ophelia had been carefully assessing what she wanted to do with her magic. She found that she'd developed a soft spot for other paranormal beings, one such as herself, Genevieve, and Lucy, who felt as if they had no choice but to thrust themselves into perilous situations when hard times struck. She wondered if there may be an untapped avenue of business to explore there, instead of dealing with corpses and death day in and day out. To be a sort of safe haven to explore options of assistance in the paranormal realm before making an ill-advised deal with a being who had malicious intents. The new Grimm legacy. "Genevieve," she called again as she checked the drinking parlor in the study. When she made her way back to the living area, she slipped off her shoes and walked over to one of the large windows that lined the main wall. They had taken to tying the curtains back, letting in as much natural light as they could. A moment later, she heard footsteps behind her and smiled. When she turned, she found Salem leaning in the doorway, the corners of his lips lifting in an exasperated smile as Poe purred away in his arms. The cat had apparently bonded to him enough over the centuries together in Phantasma that the little fiend decided to remain here instead of returning to hell. "Distracting your sister is not a task for the faint of heart," Salem commented, letting Poe drop to the ground and scamper off. She laughed. "I know. Why do you think I asked you to do it?" He pushed away from the wall to walk over to her, wrapping her arms around her waist as he dipped his head to press an affectionate kiss against the side of her throat. "Welcome home." She hummed in contentment. "Did the two of you make any progress on the locket research?" As she mentioned the necklace, her hand automatically searched up between their bodies to touch the bauble clasp around her throat. It was cold to the touch, its heartbeat dormant since they had used it to free Salem from Phantasma. It had made them all curious as to how her family received such a piece in the first place. But so far, they were unable to figure out how, of all families, the Grimm women came to possess such a crucial item from the king of the devils himself. How serendipitous it was for it to fall into Ophelia's hands. And though it no longer held the magic it once did, it was still one of the most precious things she owned. She tapped a finger against it now with affection. 1, 2, 3. "Just more dead ends," he answered. "Did you have any issues picking up the tickets?" She shook her head as she held the envelope up for him to see. "They were waiting for me as promised. Thanks for arranging everything." He tapped a finger beneath her chin, lifting her face up to his until their lips were almost touching. "What's the point of having the full range of my power if not to spoil you? Convince the bank you paid off your house, take you on extravagant vacations, buy you all the pretty things you desire. I'm here to serve." He brushed a kiss under her lips as she rolled her eyes. "And by spoil me, you mean send my sister off by herself so she can have more alone time here, together?" she quipped. It was his turn to roll his eyes. "We're joining her only a few weeks later, Angel, and I'll need every second of that time to do all the things that I want to do to you, on every surface in this house." Her pulse raced with excitement as she gave him a mock pout and asked, "You really need only a few weeks for what you have planned?" He grinned like the prince of the devils he was and leaned down to press kisses along her jawline. His next words made her shiver. "Actually, I'll need every second of the eternity you promised me to do what I have planned for you." She flushed as he dipped her back in a heated kiss, making her head spin. Someone cleared their throat from across the room. "There are 10 rooms in this house with locks on the door. If you're going to do this in the middle of the day," Genevieve told them. "There you are," Ophelia said as she disentangled herself from Salem's arms to rush over to Genevieve with the envelope. "We have a surprise for you." Genevieve lifted a brow as she lifted open the flap of the envelope and pulled out its contents. A surprised squeal pierced through the room, and when Ophelia glanced back to Salem, she saw that he looked quite pleased with the reaction. "You mean it?" Genevieve implored. Ophelia nodded enthusiastically. Genevieve dashed out of the room. "I have to start planning what to pack." Ophelia laughed, and Salem came up to embrace her from behind. "Now where were we?" he murmured. "I think you are about to try and ruin my soul and ravish my body." "Ravish your body, yes, but I think there are a few things I'd rather ruin other than your soul." He moved her toward the velvet settee, sitting down and pulling her atop him so she was straddling his lap. "This couch, for starters." He made a trail of kisses down her throat to her chest, right above the top of her corset line. Then he moved to brush his lips over her bare shoulders and arms, kissing each of the golden stars she had earned in Phantasma. 9 permanent reminders on her skin of what they'd done together. "You're absolutely incorrigible," she hummed as she leaned her palms on his chest. "You love it." She turned her head to nip at his bottom lip. "Devil." "Angel," he drawled. She kissed him then, long and slow, revealing in the little piece of heaven she saved from the dark depths of hell. Aww. I knew they would end up together somehow, but that's really cool. That's really cool. So, what do you guys think? I almost feel like the ending should have been, she should have had to go through that last night of Phantasma. Like they could have done something different with that, but it's still really good. I have enjoyed reading this with you guys so very much, and I hope you do too. And like I said, this will start Monday, the gingerbread bakery, so be ready for that. And make sure you get your book. It's by Lori Gilmore. It's the latest one she has done, and now there's a new one coming out in the spring. So we shall see. Spring of 2026. But thanks, guys, for everything, and I will see you Monday.